So it's that time of the year then. The F1 25 driver ratings have just dropped, and I have some thoughts. I have some thoughts, very much so, about some of these ratings. Also, by the way, I'm a little bit upset, and I think a better idea would have been dropping also a full database list of the ratings of the Formula 2 drivers and the Icon drivers as well, because we all know that these ratings are going to matter if you play a lot of My Team Career Mode, the new My Team 2.0 with 2 drivers. Yes, as we all know by now, hopefully, if you haven't, where have you been? On F1 25, in the new My Team Career Mode, you'll be signing 2 drivers and driving as one of them each race weekend. So there are now 2 of these drivers you need to be concerned about signing, and so I would have really appreciated, as a My Team player, and I'm sure those of you watching my channel who are My Team players, maybe seeing a full database could to kind of, almost start planning. Honestly, that's how maybe nerdy I am. I like to start planning out maybe my save about who I might go for based off the ratings, but we have no idea what the F2 drivers are saying. And obviously at the start of the game, you're not going to be signing any of the F1 drivers. You're going to be signing 2 F2 drivers, maybe 1 F2 driver, an Icon driver. So I would have really appreciated that as a full list, but it's the way they do it, obviously, for the casual viewers. Driver ratings, the F1 lot. It's just, it's a cause for debate. It's a cause for a bit of rage bait, potentially. And to be fair, the video F1 do officially on the F1 channel is always quite a bit of fun, seeing the reactions, the disappointment, the confusion of the real drivers, and that was very apparent in this year's version with, the likes of Albon maybe being confused, Ollie Bearman in there. To be fair, I'm not going to lie, Antonelli took his rating on the chin, very much so. He's one of the drivers I am a little bit baffled at the rating, so let's go through them, because, I have some thoughts on the entire collection. So I do want to preface also, by the way, with these driver ratings, I've always found on the Codemasters EA F1 game, they have to kind of skew it against the teammate they're up against for the base game, because as the game ships, they want the timing gaps between teammates to be as realistic as possible. So I find that they almost in a way bake in, like, the ratings kind of there obviously because of the stats, but they give the stats out in a way where hopefully they'll get that time gap, in the race. You see that very apparently so with the case of, like, let's say Tsunoda versus Verstappen. Verstappen is 95 rated, Tsunoda 82. I think that's a little bit harsh on Yuki. I would say he's at least you're talking like an 84, 85, because Hulkenberg and Ocon are in that realm, and I feel like this year, going into the season, with the season he had at VCARB last year, I feel like Tsunoda is in that conversation of being around, Ocon, even his fellow old teammate and friend Pierre Gasly 86. So I think they've had to be harsh on Yuki to make sure they get that big gap in the Red Bull team, in the Red Bull car versus Verstappen. But as we go on through, let's start at the bottom, actually. Hadjar, oh my days. Isaac is going to be a little bit miffed at that rating, and the other drivers in the F1 video equally were saying that. 68 for Hadjar. I know he had that huge blunder at Australia, and maybe that was what it's based off, because they had to bring a cutoff of when the ratings are based on, and obviously there's definitely time later in the season for Hadjar to be updated. I feel like Hadjar is at least on par with Doohan in terms of a rating in an F1 game. You could maybe argue much higher based off what we've seen with Hadjar IRL with his performances. But if you're talking about the game, early days in the season, surely you put Hadjar at least level pegging with Doohan, who's 73 rather than 68. I can't remember, what was Latifi rated back when he was in F1? Like, I swear it was 68. Like, that's just harsh. Hadjar is no Latifi, let's be real. And then Antonelli, oh my days. I know it's early days, but we've seen glimpses of how good this guy is. He got a sprint pole at Miami, for goodness sake. 72 is crazy. I feel like at least he's got to be on par with his other fellow F1 debutant rookies. Bortoleto, 74. I think Antonelli's got to be 74, minimum at least, especially now with what we've seen. I think going into the season, yeah, sure, Bortoleto, F2 champion. Antonelli did have quite a messy Formula 2 campaign last season, so maybe that's why they've done that. But now, based off what we've seen, he's been getting better and better every race weekend. The sprint pole, the speed's there. Just needs a little bit more polish and awareness and racecraft there. I think the raw pace is there from Antonelli, and is still more to come. So 72 feels very, very harsh. But as, to be fair, to George Russell, who's 90 rated in the game, he said to his own teammate, look, when he came into F1, he was low to mid, rated. I think Russell was actually 73, maybe 72 at one point when he came into F1, and he's grown to 90. So there definitely is time for Kimi to ascend in the driver ratings when it comes to the F1 game. And as I said before, they do the ratings based off your teammates. I think if you take that into account, that is really harsh for Antonelli, because compared to Russell, I don't think he's that far off. I think he's got to be pulled up a little bit compared to Russell. But then also equally, I think in the past, what they've done is they've just really tanked the rookies in terms of lower ratings, just because they're rookies. The experience brings down their stats quite a lot, and then they just generally try to lowball the rookies just in case they don't find their feet. I feel like this season they probably played it safe with all the rookies, but also at the same time, I think they could have been a little bit more ballsy with kind of, oh, Behrman, he's already had a couple of races. He doesn't need to be softballed a little bit. Antonelli's got so much pedigree on him and so much weighing on him. They probably could have risked it a bit with a higher rating with him. And then generally they also give lower cars a lower rating to match their lower car, essentially, to make sure they finish in that lower position in the race. Behrman, 74. I think that could have been at least a 76, in my opinion. I think based off what we saw last year, flashes of brilliance. Yes, his awareness maybe isn't there. We've seen that with the mistakes and whatnot in this season. So I think he, jokingly was okay with that in a way. But I think that's around a good level, 74 to 76. I think Lawson, in comparison, 80. If you base Lawson's performance now, maybe Lawson needs to be brought down a little bit more, or Behrman and Antonelli needs to be brought up a little bit further. Now let's move on to the kind of mid-pack here. Albon, 83, whilst his teammate is 90. Obviously, I know Sainz, he's actually grown one rating from 89 to 90, and I think that's deserved, because Carlos Sainz, I think last season, did such an amazing job, proved that he's got a lot of talent, a lot of speed there, and as he's gotten older, he's almost only got better with time in Formula 1. So you got to remember that as well. A lot of the ratings maybe are just based off what happened last season. So Sainz deserved, I think, to be finally a 90 rated driver. But Albon last season was really, but it was, Williams weren't in a great place, so it was hard for Alex to show what he could do, and he's definitely found another gear. So I feel like when the next driver rating update happens, you'll be seeing Albon shooting up from 83 to, I would say, at least an 86, like in the pack there of Gasly, Ocon, and just behind Piastri. Getting on to Piastri though, That's a madness. That is a madness. How Piastri is not minimum 89 is crazy work. Crazy work. Especially now with what we've seen. Again, though, I think that guarantees an update. Once the update comes, like, I don't know, later in the summer, I think you will see Piastri up to at least an 89, maybe even 90 rated, because based off what we've seen this season, he has found that extra gear along with Albon, and he's been a bit of a cold killer with 3 wins in a row, and having a 3-time winner in a row being 87 rated just doesn't seem that, doesn't seem logical. But again, I think it's based off the very start of the season, and coming into the season, maybe you think, okay, maybe Piastri still is 87, 89, but I think based off what we've seen now, he deserves to be up there. It's always a tricky line. They're basing the ratings off last season and then coming into the year based off maybe Australia as a first data point, because the R&D chart, when they do My Team Career Mode, is based off the first couple of races. The ratings here are probably based off the first or second race because they've released them already into the public, whereas the R&D, they've got some time to still pick up data until the game comes out fully. Sir Lewis Hamilton down to 89. I think compared to Leclerc 91 rated, as I said, take into account that, especially in the top cars, they have to try and account for the time difference that you're seeing in the races, and based off what we've seen, I think Lewis 89 compared to Leclerc 91, just to get that time gap that's there in real life between Lewis and Leclerc. I think that's fair enough. Obviously, Lewis has won a sprint race, and there was that flash of brilliance, but it has been a little bit more difficult since then, with Ferrari just dipping in performance, it going away from Hamilton a little bit. So I think that's one of the fairer ones, to be honest, of the pairings, just basing off the time gap needed. And also, Hamilton, he's in the back end, he's in the twilight of his career. He was always going to come down a little bit slowly. It was the same thing with Sebastian Vettel, wasn't it? I'd never liked seeing Seb go down in rating. I really didn't. But you had to accept that Seb was going down in rating as his career was coming towards maybe an inevitable end. So it's the same way for Hamilton, that, it's only natural with time that those things happen, basically. But to be fair, you've got his old teammate Russell scoffing at him being 89 and saying that's controversial. And Carlos pointed out, very funny, he's higher rated than Lewis. So according to the game, Ferrari replaced him with a lower rated driver. So that is a little bit comical. So in that kind of sense, maybe for the sake of, squashing debate, or I don't know, a bit of comicalness there, maybe they could have put Lewis at 90, equal on par with Carlos Sainz. The rest of them seem pretty all right to me. I think Russell 90, just behind Leclerc and Lando 91. Then there's a big gulf to Verstappen 95, which is fair because Verstappen is still, without shadow of a doubt, way above, levels above that kind of, top pack there with what he's able to do still in the Red Bull right now. And just the pedigree of obviously being a full-time world champion, you got to have that big gulf in performance, basically. But yeah, I'm envisaging like bigger jumps for Piastri, Albon as well. Honestly, I think Hulkenberg also a bit underrated, 84. He could have definitely been 86. The same as Pierre Gasly. But the updates will come, of course. The updates will come. Let me know what you guys make of it. And in general, like I said, I know why they just do the F1 driver rating, because it's a conversation starter. But as as my team 2.0 is coming with signing 2 drivers, I really would have appreciated, I think it would have been really good for them to do a whole database sheet of the F2 drivers available and the icons, because then you can get a bit of pre-planning in there with signing 2 drivers. But maybe they're still finalizing the F2 drivers. It's that time of year. The driver ratings have dropped, and I think now, according to the roadmap that EA tweeted about some time ago now, seems like ages ago now, I think at some point now, maybe next week, as early as next week, we should be getting now, I see we, as the creators, should be getting our preview hands-on, where we can actually play the game for the first time at home on our own setup. So look out for that. If you're new around here, get subscribed, because I think maybe in the next week we should be seeing maybe some tentative creator preview content, maybe our first hands-on. So exciting times. F1 25 is really not too far away. It's right around the corner at the end of this month, and then we can dig in to some My Team career mode for the first time in over a year. And I know you guys have been itching for a career mode content in general from the EA Cody's F1 game, because we haven't done an actual sit-down race on the EA Cody's F1 game in absolutely ages now, since we finished our last season of F1 24. But yeah, guys, if you have enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the like button, and like I said, let me know your thoughts on the driver ratings. Till the next one, guys, hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye.